microphone's been off this whole time, hasn't it? Okay. So... Goddamn. Alright. So, what are we doing tonight? We'll start from the top. Of course, I turned off my microphone last stream, and I left it turned off. So why wouldn't I? That's how I do. That is exactly what I do every single stream. Jesus Christ, we're doomed. Alright, so, starting from the beginning, it's okay, these streams are unlisted. You won't be embarrassed for long. So of course we're talking to Adam and Sitch tomorrow about the Centrism video that I made a little while ago. I've already gone over it. I've already gone over this as well, but I've already gone over their stream, which is exorbitantly long. It takes them till the 13-minute mark to even get past the title crawl. And we're not going to go over this. It's 2 hours and 53 minutes, but we're going to go over bits of it, because our goal here tonight is not to rebut all of this, it's to figure out what the sticking points are. So, what I was just saying a second ago, before I realized, before I thought to check my OBS and see if my microphone was actually turned on, they're going to probably produce a definition of right and left that's going to be as fetishized as what we're... It's going to be the exact same... It's going to be fetishized in precisely the same way as I critique in the video. However, we're going to have to show compellingly why that is so and how that is so. Somebody in chat mentioned that Adam and Sitch are fans of Jonathan Haidt. Jonathan Haidt, of course, associates right and left with personality and temperament and things of that sort. That was probably actually a point of rapport between them and Erudite, who they talked to yesterday, so that might be worth glancing through if the transcript is finished loading. Yeah. So that's that. Music is a bit loud. The music's so loud. Oh, you know what? I think I know why. Oh, of course. I had the gain up. Boy, we're doing fantastically tonight. Hey, I'm glad we sorted this out now instead of during the conversation tomorrow. That's good. Much better? Okay, good. Damn. Alright, well, we're off to a rough start, but that's okay. So, what are the beats we want to hit tonight? We want to figure out what their definition of right and left is that they're going to push against my characterization. My characterization, by the way, is not fishhook theory. I referenced that sort of visually in the video, but that's not my position. I'm doing something a little bit different. It's similar, but different. So they're going to give a definition of right and left. We're going to want to see exactly what that is anchored in. And that's what we're going to want to target as the anchor. And then following from that, we're going to want to have to be able to answer the question posed in several different ways of why are we chaining our understanding of right and left to these specific tendencies that derive from the French Revolution. That's going to be somewhat critical, because they're going to say something to the effect of like, and it's going to be presentist and erroneous for reasons that are fairly easy to point out to a reasonable audience. I'm not entirely certain I'm going to have a reasonable audience tomorrow. Maybe I will. We'll see. Oh, why is that still on? Let's turn that down. But what's probably going to happen, and we'll see this come up in the actual thing when we go through it, I'm sure. What's probably going to happen is they're going to say something to the effect of like, well, why are we chained to these older definitions? Like, obviously the definitions of these things change and common usage changes. There's actually a crucial point that Robert Michel points out, because I mean, this is something I don't bring up in the video, but my first exposure to this notion of the right wing as being primarily concerned with the fixedness of specific concepts and not simply with like specific policies is actually through people, not Robert Michel specifically, but people who were readers of Robert Michel, who later became a fascist. So you know where I'm coming from there. In fact, that's actually going to be a useful point of contact, because they used to have a fairly good rapport with the academic agent, who some of you may remember from way back. I had some very negative interactions with that one, but he liked to cite that kind of material quite a bit. For those who don't know, Robert Michel is primarily known for a book called Political Parties, a sociological study of the oligarchical tendencies of modern democracy. He was a student of Max Weber. If you've ever heard of the phrase, the iron law of oligarchy, this is where it's from. They had a 2v2 debate with Lance and Matt Binder where they kind of lay out their beliefs on centrism. That might be useful to look at. Do you want to do a mock debate for the prep? Not particularly. First of all, it's going to be more of an open conversation, not a debate, so it's... a mock debate won't necessarily give me any advantage. Okay, and last, there was a third point. Right, last we're going to want to hammer down something, yeah, okay, got it, right, it's come back to me. We really need to hammer home the point that fundamentally, the purpose of my video was not to say that liberals are evil and that centrists are evil. The point was to give reason for centrists to, you know, take stock of their actual positions and what motivates them to identify as centrists in the first place, and to see what the actual effects of that are, and to see if that doesn't actually radically alter how they think is appropriate to situate themselves politically. Because like, there's no point. This isn't addressed obviously to like radical socialists or whatever. These people already have this position by and large. The target audience for this video are people who think that identifying as a centrist is somehow a reasonable middle ground between two positions that become increasingly unreasonable as they go farther away from that centrist position. The point that I make is that actually no, you are at as radical a position as everybody else, because there is no default. There is no default setting. There's no middle point. These are not just like the left and the right aren't separated by like a gradient. They're completely different positions, with completely different goals, and they inhabit a completely different conceptual world. They don't believe in the same things, and it's not like people often think of centrism and the right and the left, and the extreme right and the extreme left, yada yada yada. And liberalism and fascism, what have you, as being, I suppose an analogy would be like on a chessboard. You're thinking of like, or like on a grid board, people who are sort of like centrists and liberals and whatnot, and ideologically liberals. I don't just mean people who sort of like adopt a liberal stance, because of course at one point in time leftists were liberals. They think of I guess political alignment or political ideology as in like the strategy that you are taking to win a game of chess, whereas what's actually at stake is what game you're playing altogether, what the actual pieces are, what do the squares on the board mean, things like that. That's really what we're talking about when we're talking about like ideological positions. It's not just a matter of like and this is one of the reasons again why people are so harsh on liberals. It's not because like there isn't value in a liberal stance, or like there isn't like a richness there and like a deep literary and philosophical history that's worth internalizing, and that in fact feeds very strongly into a lot of the critical work that we do now. It's that by sort of assuming it as, well, quite literally as a fetish, you're treating it the same way you would treat sort of a god. Like think of you would never expect like a fundamentalist Christian, for example, to imagine ways to improve the Bible, right? because it's sort of special and magic and fixed. Um, you don't fix the Bible, you fix yourself to be more appropriate to it. And that's sort of how, like a dogmatic or ideological liberal who fetishizes the liberal order, I suppose, that's how they treat the liberal order. It's like, this isn't a thing that can be critiqued. These are simply the best things that can be, and our goal in politics should fundamentally be to adjust humanity to it. And that's a presumption that has no actual defense, but that's why it's ideological, because you never get to a point where you have to field a defense. The Bible is so great, why isn't there a Bible 2? There are several Bible 2s, actually. As with most sequels, it's not as good as the original. Or at least that's the broad consensus amongst certain crowds. Sunday, do you think reification is equivalent to what you mean by fetishization? No, reification is what happens when you pack an argument or a description or something with terms that basically recreate the thing that you were setting out to challenge, or that create the thing that was under scrutiny. Whereas fetishization is like an attitude or like a way of behaving with respect to a thing. So they are different. Reification is a different kind of act. Keep in mind this is not exactly true for Judaism, since the Torah is constantly being reinterpreted through added commentary. Yeah, but that's crucial. It's being reinterpreted, right? It's not being like, hey, this book is no longer fit for purpose, we've thought of a better one. It's, no, we need to figure out in how it's actually true in new ways. And so, like, the fetish remains. That's not important. The point is, what we're going to have to try to make the case for, and what I make the case for in my video, is that the problem with the centrist line is not any particular policy position associated with it. Because anyone of any political description can pragmatically take on any policy position to suit a given situation, with like very few exceptions. The problem is that the centrist identifies primarily as being the midpoint between two sides, which must be fixed for there to be a center between them. That is a coherent stance that has like some stability to it. As opposed to simply being in between them on one issue that may have a gradient. If your stance is simply centrist categorically, well, what you're doing then, that's like a self-description of yourself, of your political attitude. You are assuming that both are fixed, when this side does not assume both are fixed, and this side does assume both are fixed, which means that by identifying yourself as a centrist, you are you are loading in a position that is directly consonant with this side. You are in effect basically right-wing. You just don't know it, because you have this weird conception of the left, and I realize I have my hands reversed for some reason. This is my right hand. You have this weird conception of the left as being simply like exactly like the right, but with like specific attitudinal changes. You think the difference is how they want to play chess, not which game do they want to play. Sunday, I think a lot of people who call themselves centrist merely mean to say that they hold a mix of left and right views, but I also think you're right that a lot of people mean what you suggest. Well, what does that mean to hold a bunch of left and right views? See, I don't believe that policy positions are inherently left or right. I think that's a mistake. They can be inherently left or right in a specific context. Do you want to come on? Okay, you can come on and talk for a couple seconds. Alright, let's pull on Leo. Also, do you play chess? Yes, badly. Although I did beat Loner Box in our first game. Okay, Leo's getting his mic. We're not going to talk for very long because I want to get some progress done on this before it's 2 a.m. Well, I guess in the meantime, we can find that erudite talk and see if that's useful. Also, that debate with Binder and the other one. How about other games? What am I playing at the moment? I think I'm about like 3/4 of the way through Nier Automata. That's for a patron. I just got Elden Ring and I started that on Lark tonight. I've been playing Pathologic 2 very badly, on and off. Okay, let's see. Adam and Sitch, Matt Binder. Well, they've done these debates a few times. Centrism. I don't know which debate this is. If somebody wants to oh, second thought is strawmanning enlightened centrism. Okay. Yeah, if somebody wants to find me the relevant debate, that would be useful. These are very long. I'm not digging through these right now. Which endings have you gotten so far in Automata? Oh, I haven't gotten to any endings yet. I mean, I'm 3/4 of my way through my first run. I don't game all that often, actually. I'd love to. I'd love to just take a week and just relax and like read novels and just play games. But it's been a non-stop boom boom boom. Mostly for prep for the Loner Box conversation on Friday. A little bit for this one. Leo, you almost ready to go? Is the server open yet? The server is open. I'm just not really advertising it right now. I don't want to deal with a rush of hooligans. Which will just mean closing the server if that happens. It's not a big deal. You're not ready yet still? What are you doing? It's terrible for him. Okay. Well, let me check the erudite one quickly, because that's more recent, and they might have said something about that. Let's see. Political psychology. Oh, this might actually be perfect. This might actually be perfect for our purposes. Let me pull this up. Boom, boom, boom,
It's very gullible.
Okay. Let's boost that. Let's put that on the screen.
It's called the dual mating strategy, which essentially morbidity expression of substance addiction with technology addiction. We were trying to basically internally evaluate if our substance abusing teens in certain programs across my province were also expressing high levels of technology.
Oh yeah, she's talking about how she did like one project in her degree that involved making a questionnaire to assess addictions in youth, and now she calls herself a psychometrician, actually, till the end of time. Because, you know, when you co-author a paper with a professor, you automatically absorb the profession of whatever you're writing for, right? Anyways, let's see. Oh, it looks like we do have a transcript. Good. So let's, what if I look up? No, nothing for center. How about liberal? That occurs twice. Oh, haha. Okay, here we go. There might actually be something here. Covington kids. Oh, I bet they're gonna say height, aren't they? They're gonna talk about height. Oh, it does occur. But it's not finding it for some reason. Why is it not doing that? What is going on here? Okay. Jonathan High.
The case?
I love Height. I love him.
Yeah, we talk about Jonathan Haidt a lot. So.
Haidt is one of the absolute worst social theorists I have ever read. He's actually appallingly bad. We'll have to review some of that.
So
that's right.
So you're familiar with like moral foundations theory and the social intuitionist model, those kinds of things?
Yep. Yeah, I've read basically every one of his books.
Sweet.
I don't think there's a book I haven't read, actually. So I'm not an expert on it by any means, but I can report to you my feet.
Okay. Let's see.
Their own sins, essentially, of being like, I was kind of a piece of shit to like a disenfranchised group. But then on the left, we have full on science denial going on. We've got a similar level of intolerance, right? We don't tolerate the intolerant. You've got this like,
you don't tolerate the why would you tolerate the intolerant? That would run counter to a tolerant policy. If you tolerate the intolerant, then you permit the intolerant to continue to be like, what is the basis of that critique? That doesn't make any sense.
Essentially, of like the wokeness is going too far. It's frustrating to see that all of the conservatives like slippery slope concerns are like coming true day by day, right? Like people are identifying as helicopter gender, and it's just like fuck. I want to advocate for trans lives, trans rights.
No, you don't. You fucking hate them. Let's see here. Leo, you coming on or what? Okay, here we go. I don't want to look at Erudite anymore. Her face offends me.
There we go.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing. How about you?
You were extraordinarily quiet, by the way.
Oh, here, let me turn 1 second. Is this any better?
That's much better, yeah. You said it's weird. Like, the audio levels are showing you as, like, popping up into the yellow, but I can barely... You sound like you're in a tunnel.
Right. I think it was just because my input sensitivity was really high.
That would do it.
Yeah, okay. Well, I had a few different questions, but I guess I wasn't sure how much of them might have been answered by you covering the Adam and Stitch videos that you're about to watch. But I guess I wanted to sort of talk a little bit about your thesis that you're going to present to them in your discussion, and maybe like bounce off certain like predictions I could probably make about like how they might react to that.
Well, I'm not entirely certain I'm going to be giving a thesis to them.
Well, I mean, presumably you're going to be arguing some, like, I figured that your argument is going to be about centrism, like what centrism is and what it ultimately implies if you take the position.
Well, the argument's given in the video, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to let them guide the conversation and let them ask, point to problems that they have with it, and then we can sort of go that way. Because what I don't want to do is then produce a second video in effect, and then have to justify that with fresh arguments on top. Because that's gonna be an absolute nightmare to do. See what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that. Well, anyway, I mean, the original comment that led me on here was just that it seems like a lot of people define centrist differently, and so like I'm not sure if they're going to be very like persuaded, I guess, by the idea that centrism means precisely what you laid out in the video. Because even though what you said in the video makes sense, they might just like think that it means a different thing entirely, the term itself, and so they'll just like deny that your view of it is legitimate.
Well, I mean, they could just flat out deny it, but if they do just flat out deny it, there's not a whole lot I can do. Like, if they're just flat out not going to be receptive to any argument, they're just going to plant their feet in the ground and insist that no, the thing that seems...
Well, the thing is, I think you also need to present an argument for why people ought to use centrist in the way that you lay it out, because people might think about the term in an entirely different way. Like that, it's not necessarily a matter of them just disagreeing with the conclusions you draw from how you define the term, but they disagree with how you define the term at all, like the very premises that your argument is working from.
Well, I mean, the immediate reason would be is that if you use it in any other way, it loses basically all explanatory power. Because again, like every single policy can be used pragmatically by both actors who identify as right and left. Robert Michel actually, or Michel, I keep calling him Mitchell's. Robert Michel goes into some detail on this. Like he gives an account of why conservative parties, which are primarily concerned with continuing to deprive the poor and to entrench aristocratic values and aristocratic interests, nonetheless, under certain circumstances, have to make recourse to democratic methods. What defines them as conservative isn't the policies that they pursue. It's the things that orient their overall action and their overall purposes. So it may be the case that a populist party, the king and all the king's poor, come into to take control of the democracy through democratic means and still play like they'll sympathize with the lower classes, yada yada yada. But the end in mind is directly the interest is directly in the interest of promoting something that they treat as fixed and immutable, like a part of human nature that has to be protected or cultivated. Like obviously, even conservatives can adjust to changing stances. We only identify them as conservatives because they're reacting to a revolution. And in the absence of a revolution, there are no conservatives, even if their attitudes remain the same. That itself stands as like a pragmatic change, right? So, like their identity is altered. However, what they're oriented around, like what sort of determines the things they ultimately conceive themselves as doing, and whether or not that has to do with like kind of an almost blind opening up of possibilities as opposed to a closing of them, as in like we need to stop the breach. We need to stop the leftists from breaking down the society that we already have with all the things that we already value. Like that latter one, that may employ like a bunch of different like leftist or supposedly leftists or socialist or what have you policies, because they're regarded at the time as being like these are either the necessary steps to get the power to do what you need to do, and maybe they think that pragmatically these are just band-aids that they need to put on to keep society from degenerating in a particular kind of way. Like medicine is not good for a healthy person, but or some medicines aren't good for healthy people, but nonetheless, like there are times when they are absolutely essential for sick people to keep them alive. That kind of attitude. Like that's entirely consistent with the left-wing divide from its inception, and it's not old. And indeed, when we look even into recent history, into the actual divide between left and right.
Hold on. Before you proceed, I just want to point out that what you just did, I think you just finished what was sort of like an independent argument, and now you're departing on another argument. Now, I'm not saying that's like sneaky. I'm not saying you're like deliberately trying to do that. I'm just pointing out that there's two different things going on here. So now you're also talking about the history, making your use of the term more legitimate, not just in the original pragmatic argument that you just made about like its explanatory power.
Yeah, that's true. I'm just making an illustration though of how this is actually useful in history, like how this actually boils down. So, for example.
Okay. Oh, I see what you're saying.
So, like social democrats.
Because I was going to, the reason why I said that is just because people often refer to the history of a word, and I mean you often do this as well. Although I'm not sure if you're intentionally using it as an argument to justify the legitimacy of like a particular use.
No. The history of a word has no bearing whatsoever on its appropriateness, on like how it's most appropriate to use it, because semantic change is a real thing, obviously.
Okay.
The reason why you focus on the history of a word is to determine whether or not there is a coherent line of argumentation that it's a key component in that you're misinterpreting because you're assuming an understanding of the term that implies other terms that aren't actually universally applicable to that conversation. They may have like a very specific meaning. So for example, when Max Weber says in Politics as a Vocation that nowadays we must regard the state as that which has a monopoly on the use of legitimate physical violence within a territory, it's not really correct to say that, no, that's not what the state is. The state is this, by reference to how Machiavelli talks about the state, or by reference to how Hobbes talks about the Commonwealth or whatever. Um, what's what's important though is to understand how those different terms were used in context and what motivated those uses, so you understand the different moves that are being made between them to a certain extent. Otherwise, when you read Max Weber's definition of the state and you just kind of assume that, like you're reading a recipe in a cookbook or something, you learn very little because you're not understanding what it is that he's doing and what he's changing and the changes that have taken place, in order for him to be making that definition in the first place. Because he's not defining the state because the state. He's not defining the state because this is an obvious fact. He's defining the state because he's actually interjecting a really new way of looking at this into the discourse.
Would you say that his act of philosophizing about this was like a profoundly political act? Because the way you're referring to this as like a change in reaction to political thought, it just sounds like it's like a very like. I'm just sorry. Go ahead.
No, who are you talking about?
Max Weber.
Sorry, I asked the question again.
Max Weber.
No, ask the question
asking,
again.
Do you think? I was asking basically if you think that this like philosophizing was like a deeply political act in the sense of like how much of an impact it could have on a society or like on his particular society.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah. No, I mean it's from him that you even get basically the whole decisionist school of sovereignty, like in the sense of like Carl Schmitt, etc.
Right.
No, he's absolutely. Read his political writings. This was not like a dispassionate observer. He was actually a real piece of work in a lot of ways. Hated Poles.
It's just interesting to think about how, like, writers and thinkers are able to make that much of an impact without having to, resort to like command over physical violence or something like that to change a society.
Well, I don't think he created that. I think he accurately described how the state is treated and like how it's like situated in our discourse. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Was there anything else you want to talk about, or?
No. That's all.
Okay. Are you familiar at all with Adam and Sitch's use of height?
Not really. I'm slightly familiar with height, though.
Oh, yeah, I do have stubble. I keep forgetting to shave. You are familiar with height, you said?
Like very slightly. Like it's not like I've like directly read him.
Oh yeah.
I just know like I know some of his ideas. I watch videos that have covered him.
I've been consistently unimpressed. I actually read a large chunk.
I am fascinated, actually. Like I agree that he's totally unimpressive, but what I'm more fascinated by is like sort of what his work indicates about the way people view politics. Like I think he actually is a pretty good case study for like the archetypal problematic way of thinking about politics.
He's just no, I don't think so. He's just another Malcolm Gladwell or Jordan Peterson or whatever. He's just another like pop social scientist who's
Well, yes, but they're all contributing to what I think is something similar, and like they're all contributing to sort of a project of causing people to view the world in terms of just like a spectrum of sort of values, and thinking about values that are very narrow. Like they attach these labels and essentialize like completely nonsensical things as like a part of human nature, and then they like try and make it like measurable or compare. I mean, like that's what height seems to be doing in any case. Like
that sounds like an excellent idea for a video you should make.
Well, I mean, it sounds like a video. It sounds like something you guys. I'm sorry, you have already covered.
I mean,
in like a variety of videos. I mean, it's just not directly, I guess.
Definitely not directly. I think I've only looked at height once on stream. I read a large chunk of The Righteous Mind. That was a few months ago, though.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Always like chatting with you. Yeah, anytime. Take care. All right. Let's find. Did anyone find the Bender debate that's relevant to this? Let's just go through their review of my video. We'll do that. They might reveal a lot even just in the intro. The first time I went through this, I was looking through it to critique. I wasn't looking for points that I could clarify. I'm going to try to be productive this time. Let's see.
Destiny said, well, aren't you... I mean, I'm making money right now off of you. Like we're
talking to me right now.
Yeah,
yes.
we're having a conversation. This is how I make money. And he's like, oh, he's basically saying, so aren't you contributing to growing my platform, which you're saying is doing bad in the world because I'm platforming these other people? And then he was like, bye.
He's like, oh, you're right. And then he just left.
He hung up. Yeah, it was hilarious. So a bunch of people ripped into him for that. Which...
Because they're very stupid. They're very stupid. These are very stupid people. What? You left the call and you didn't have sex with Destiny first? What's wrong with you? What kind of coward are you? Don't you value your growth? Morons.
I mean, this guy might not just... He might not be very bright. I don't know. He
might not be.
He
That's
uses
a possibility.
lot of philosophers and whatnot in his videos, which I think sometimes give people the impression that he is bright.
Yeah, right.
But
oh, you're right. Okay, chat said it was about Lauren Southern. That makes sense.
Okay, we need to be productive here. Just don't be filled with rage at just the monumental stupidity of what we're about to witness. We are trying to help them.
That makes sense. That's what he was complaining about.
Oh yeah, him platforming Laura. I mean, we've platformed Laura Southern, so.
Well, but even the thing with, like, first of all, to put Lauren Southern and Nick Fuentes in the same camp is like horribly dishonest.
Okay, let's speed this
They're
up.
very far apart from
Speed
each
this
other.
up a little bit.
Yeah.
But even so, I don't understand this criticism. And this was
Oh my god, this is at 1.5.
part of, I think this was part of Max's Mr. Girls criticism too. Like, do people really think that when Destiny is talking to Nick Fuentes that like people from Destiny's audience are gonna be swayed by Nick Fuentes in those conversations? Like, I don't know, maybe I'm just so biased, but when I watch these conversations, I feel like it's far more the other direction. I feel like Destiny's far more likely to pull people out of Nick's camp into his camp, not the other way around.
Yeah. I mean, I was reading a Twitter DM. So
No, I'm saying, like, to me, don't you think that Destiny's so much more likely to pull people from Nick's side to Destiny's side, as opposed to the inverse of that, which is what all the lefties are afraid of?
I'm not sure about that. And I mean, I actually, after that blow up, I actually messaged Destiny kind of my take on that, because there was like a lot not being said in that conversation that was kind of bothering me. I'm wondering if I can find the message here. Because
If I never have to say the word Destiny again for like 2 years, that'd be great.
you understand, I look at and I'm assuming you do, because you have some of the same ideas about moral intuitions coming first. Like if the moral intuitions are somewhat immutable, I'm not exactly sure. The question for me to be able to answer your question is how many
Okay, hang on. 10:14. You said something interesting.
but immutable.
What's immutable?
I'm
What's
not
immutable?
about moral intuitions coming first. Like if the moral intuitions are somewhat immutable.
Oh, right, of course.
I'm not exactly sure. The question for me to be able to answer your question is how many people have very fixed, immutable moral intuitions that no matter what you say or do, you're not going to be able to convince them because the moral intuitions are so strong in them. I do think there are people who have kind of, blasé moral intuitions about things that could jump back and forth between being a Destiny fan and a Nick Fuentes fan. I mean, Xander Hall's a perfect example of it, right? I mean, Xander Hall said he fell down the alt-right pipeline or whatever, and then now he's a Destiny fan. So that's the question for me. My gut intuition, well, not my, I mean, based on surveys that I have seen. Well, why are you laughing at that?
Yes, continue.
Based on surveys I've seen.
Yes, okay.
Not my gut intuition.
Yeah.
Well, no, Karen Stinner has done some research on authoritarian personalities. And I think the authoritarian personality is the type of personality that has very fixed moral intuitions. Now, those moral intuitions can be very different. I think that person could be a socialist or that person could be an ethnocentrist, right? But where the authoritarianness comes in is that they consult their gut and they say, my gut is always right. Okay.
Right.
Fuck you. I don't care what your argument is. My gut is right. That's the authoritarian personality. Now, whatever that gut's telling them, that could be all over the place. But I'm just saying, in the context of what we.
That was an interesting statement. So he seems. Let me check the transcript here quickly. We're at 11:59 in. I wish the transcript kept up with where you were in the video. It's frustrating to scroll down. But let's see here. 11:59. So I think that person could be a socialist, that person could be an ethnocentrist, but where the authoritarianist comes in is where they consult their gut. So there seems to be a break here between moral intuitions and where you get sorted in between left and right.
Fixed moral intuitions. Now, those moral intuitions can be very different. I think that person could be a socialist or that person could be an ethnocentrist, right? But where the authoritarianness comes in is that they consult their gut and they say, my gut is always right. Okay.
Okay. So authoritarianism is not particular to right or left, which I agree with. So there's a fundamental break here between your attitude and your political affiliation. Now he's a socialist and like an ethno-state person, so he might do something weird and like construe these both as being left-wing if they're doing like horseshoe theory shit, right?
Okay. Fuck you. I don't care what your argument is. My gut is right. That's the authoritarian personality. Now, whatever that gut's telling them, that could be all over the place. But I'm just saying, in the context of what we do, trying to win people over to our perspective, there's 30% of the population you're never going to be able to touch.
Right. Well, okay. Yeah. So addressing the moral intuitions, I think I have two questions. The first is that even if someone has moral, like built in, they were born with moral intuitions that puts them on the left or the right, or how we categorize left and right, obviously. I mean, I don't think that means that someone would be born an extremist necessarily. Like there could be someone that has, right-wing moral intuitions that, is a white nationalist or is closer to that category and is kind of like a Nick Fuentes fan. And, through conversations with Destiny or other people, that moderates them away from being that extreme, but they're still on the right. They still have those right-wing moral intuitions.
Yeah.
So I think that's a possibility. And then the second question is, what about people like Thomas Sowell, who, they grow up like they're young, they're very leftist. I think he was, he describes himself as like a borderline communist, right? And then he changes because of some experience and becomes kind of like the exact opposite, becomes like pretty far right libertarian. And so the question is, did his moral intuitions change, or was he not operating according to his moral intuitions, or are his moral intuitions still the same? They're still whatever they were, but he's just sort of perceiving reality through.
Or is there a lot of money to be made by giving a How You Left the Left account in your best-selling book that is a closeted polemic against left-wingers for the consumption of right-wingers who don't read very much?
Through a different lens that allows him to switch sides.
Well, he's definitely not in the authoritarian thing. And I mean, I had some exchange on Twitter recently where I was saying that, some people prefer truth over tribalism. And I really do think that if you're in the category of someone who's a truth seeker.
So I guess authoritarianism isn't a moral intuition, despite the fact that it's quite literally an intuition that determines your position on the truth of a statement.
You're going to be fighting your moral intuitions all the time. You kind of train yourself to do that because you're like, I have a gut reaction to this, but I could be wrong, and I need to dig deeper to find the actual truth of the matter. And I think Thomas Sowell is one of those personalities, because as soon as he saw, and he's told this story many times, as soon as he saw a conflicting reality, he switched. He was like, okay, obviously socialism doesn't work.
No, yeah, but what I'm asking is, did his moral intuitions change, or is he forming an opinion that's just contradicting his moral intuitions?
I would say, and this is an interesting debate because I don't know. I would say that he has cultivated the ability to override his moral intuitions. So whatever his moral intuitions are, which might still be very socialist, who knows? We want to help people.
He's just more evolved than the rest of us politically. He can just, he can transcend his moral intuitions that dictate where the rest of us fall.
Even right wingers want to help people.
I don't agree with this at all. I think, well, first of all, I think people are born with. I don't think people are born directly with their moral intuitions, but I think people are born kind of like with like a direction towards a set of moral intuitions.
Right.
And I do think that you can completely change your moral intuitions based on things that happen to you. I think that's completely possible.
That is Height's. That's what Height says. Yeah.
Okay.
You get your moral intuitions are basically a rough draft that's informed by experience.
Right. Okay. So, but see, that's what I would say with Thomas Sowell. I know, guys, it's pronounced Sowell. I was joking earlier. But so people were like, it's Sowell. Like,
it's a comedy show. Look at the thumbnail, guys.
Well, I think when we watched Vosh's video on it, he kept saying so well.
Yeah.
But no, I think that with Thomas Sowell, he probably had, the strong left-wing moral intuitions that led him down the path. And then when he was working his government job and he kind of saw what he believed was government inefficiencies in, was it like sugarcane or some production or something, and it just completely changed his outlook on reality. And I think his moral intuitions.
By the way, I think I found the Surf Spitter debate that was referring to. Yeah, please send that to me in Discord, would you?
Changed in response to that. I think it's completely possible. I mean, you look at, and even like, I think it's hard. Now, here's where I think is different. I think you can change your moral intuitions. I think you can change your politics. I think it's much more difficult to change your personality type. So, like a classic example of this in my mind is David Brock, who was a guy who was he was a right-wing hatchet man. Basically, his job was to be like a right-wing, what's the word? Like he would dig up dirt on people and attack them. This is pre-internet days. So he'd dig up dirt on people. He would give it to like right-wing figures like Rush Limbaugh, people in like right-wing news, radio kind of pundit sphere, and he would kind of craft, right-wing hit pieces on left-wingers. And then
he spoke straight to the moral intuitions.
Yeah.
Like I did. What's his name again?
David Brock.
Okay, yeah.
And then, but here's the thing: David Brock is gay, and so when a lot of the stuff about like anti-gay marriage stuff from the right wing came out, and a lot of the anti-gay stuff from the right wing came out,
makes me think of that famous news blooper where the news lady was like, he climbed Mount Everest, but he is gay. Wait, no, but he's blind. I meant he's blind. Oh my god.
He like completely flipped, and he just became a left-wing hatchet man against the right.
Because of the gay thing.
Right. But it's and so I think he's the guy that started
yeah, Titan, go ahead.
Media Matters, I think.
Mm-hmm. Oh no.
Or really? One of these
Tequila, you can just DM me. You don't need to ping me in stream notes.
So see, David Brock. He started one of these like crazy. Yeah, no, he started Media Matters for America, which, if you guys know, are aware of, this is like a left-wing hit organization where basically they just dig up a lot of like dirt and often very out of context clips on right wingers and they try to publicize it. Okay. So he literally.
Yeah, this is gonna take forever. Let's look at this one.
Like the argument that when you say
this is a debate between Adam and Sitch and Matt Bender and Lance from the Surfs. Let me know if there's like a specific timestamp.
The LGBT people have been historically marginalized. That's definitely true. That's definitely not really true publicly in the last 5 to 10 years. It seems like what do you mean? Like if someone comes out as LGBT, everyone in the school is clapping. It's like a lot of children are doing this in friend groups.
This is 100% the feels, fellas. I got to tell you, broadly speaking, LGBTQ, especially if you're trans people, are overwhelmingly overrepresented in unemployment, in homelessness, in being kicked out of their families. They have the highest rates of suicide amongst children. Well, that's exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about people who have but we're talking about people who are, broadly speaking, overwhelmingly marginalized. Hey, can you hear me?
What's up?
We can hear you, yes.
Nice. Worked out first try. No challenge.
Nice. I hope you gentlemen are doing well today.
Yeah. How's your show been?
With another long debate. So you will have us at an advantage of being your favorite YouTuber. Oh, so we have to talk about this. We just got through a very long conversation with your favorite YouTuber, Sargon of Akkad.
Oh, no way.
Yes.
How was that? I was just watching internet comment etiquette where he challenged Sargon to a fight, and Sargon thought he meant a debate.
Oh.
I don't know why it is exactly, but Lance makes me think of Brendan Fraser just so incredibly much for some reason.
What he meant, like he wants to box him or something?
Yeah, there's like this big new thing where apparently big YouTubers box each other.
Clash.
Yeah.
Right.
So he challenged.
He has one of the most violently friendly faces I've ever seen.
He challenged Sargon to a clash.
Right. That's ridiculous.
Did Sargon accept, or is there a fight?
Assuming he did not.
He did.
Did Destiny side with Lauren Southern on the denial of the residential school mass graves? Is that an actual thing? Really? Not digging into that right now, but dear God.
He did not. Which is funny, because internet comments etiquette's like performance in his first creator clash. He got...
No, Destiny didn't side with her. Okay, good.
Absolutely tooled in that event.
Who did he fight?
I can't remember. I'd have to look it up.
Okay. Listen, Sargon's a philosopher. Okay,
he is a philosopher king.
Right.
DJ Welsh. That's it.
Listen, we have to preface this conversation. Okay, Adam is very afraid because
you gonna tell him? The chat was like, "Don't tell Lance."
We have to tell Lance.
Okay. This is our good faith move here, Lance.
That's right.
Okay, take this.
That's right. This is 100% good faith. Okay.
I find Adam you very good faith. I'll be totally honest with you. This is not me placating to.
You're banned from the Discord. Why were you banned from the Discord?
Chat, I know they hate me, but I find you to be a very good faith individual, especially behind the scenes. If anyone doesn't know, Adam will be very pleasant in emails. He's even sent me.
Why try to be?
That means he's bad faith. What are you talking about?
No, he'll
he's
be
so nice
he'll be
in emails, and he reams you on stream because he's a bad faith individual.
No, he'll try to send me like his views on Marxism and stuff like that. He's actually
okay. That's adorable.
He's a bit of a sweetheart behind the scenes.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't know this. Wait, am I not good faith? You just said Adam's good faith.
Oh, I don't communicate with you, so I don't know. I can't
I
don't
speak communicate with anyone.
Yeah.
But you communicate with me right now, okay?
So sorry, what's the secret? What's the big revelation?
Anyway, the secret is before you came on stream, we had another guest on who was not Carl. It was not Carl. I want to make it clear. This was not Carl. We had another guest. I'm not joking. There was another guest on who dropped the F slur right before they left.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we don't want you to clip that and send it to Carlos Maza and get okay.
You guys can have your F slurs. You're safe with me. Don't worry.
I disavowed. I disavowed.
Hang on, let me check the Discord. Alright, I've revoked the ban, Dusty Poncho, but if you're banned again, that's your final chance. I don't know what it was.
Disavow, and we
disavow 100%. We do not use such language.
I felt very triggered by the whole thing because this is the first time this guy's come on our stream. We invite him on our stream to have a good faith conversation, and he drops the F slur on the way out the door, which means we can't repost the video.
Tequila Sunset, if you want to send me an actual like a timestamp for when this goes to where you think it goes, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, which we normally.
This thing's almost 3 hours long.
So I mean,
can't you just edit that part out or just like mute it?
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, we do like 10-hour streams, and it's a big headache. So I mean, he definitely spit in our face on the way out the door. So it was we disavow, obviously.
But it wasn't Sargon.
Don't run the Carlos. It wasn't Sargon. No, it was this other. It was another Brit bonger.
Yeah.
I know they all sound the same.
Here we go.
But
conservative YouTubers out there, and they listen to him and they go, "Oh, this guy is, he's not too far right, not too far left." The point, which is, when I went on the show, but the reaction I received via phone calls on my live stream, DMs on Twitter, emails, that audience, I expected maybe a handful, even maybe
this guy looks like if Booksmarts and Destiny had a baby.
Even 1 or 2 would have been like, well, that's good for me. I'm happy with how that turned out. It was a lot more than that. And it even shocked me based on, I think his audience buys that. Honestly, obviously there's a lot of conservatives who listen to his show and
okay, fair enough, Tequila. Thank you for this.
What he says. But there's also, out of all the right-wing shows, he is easily, or at least all the shows that espouse right-wing politics, regardless of for what reason, his show, without a doubt, has the most of an audience that is not self-IDing as right. They're not the majority.
Yes, him. I understand. He has the largest right-wing audience for someone who does not self-identify as someone on the right.
I think it's also it can be a useful tool.
Oh, you're saying his audience doesn't?
His audience, yes, his audience.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Okay, Steven Crowder's audience. They know who Steven Crowder is. Steven Crowder doesn't hide that he's a right winger.
Right.
He flaunts it. So his audience is made up of fellow right wingers, again, across the spectrum. So they could be centered, right leaning center, all the way to like far right fascists or whatever. But there is that spectrum knows who he is, and they agree with his politics and know that he's a right winger.
Okay, we'll avoid that language in future, Special Agent Dusty Poncho.
And they go there for to hear his right-wing ideology. Tim Pool's audience, or at least a significant percentage, again, significant to me could mean even like 5%, 10%, way more than any other right-wing channel, goes to his channel and thinks they are getting someone who's just talking straight down the line, maybe even a little bit more liberal than the other conservative YouTubers out there, and they listen to him and they go, "Oh, this guy is he's not too far right, not too far left. He's just down the middle." So his position is the sensible one, because honestly, a lot of apolitical people are people who aren't in these political.
This is more recent than I thought it was. This is from June this year.
Bubbles do have this bizarre idea that centrism is, you don't get your way, leftists, you don't get your way, people on the right. We've compromised. Everyone should be angry. And that's just not how the world works, honestly. That's not how things go.
Everyone should be angry, but continue.
And yes, I am aware that on Twitter I call people bitches all the time. We're here to preserve democracy. We are not a democracy.
I don't think so. I mean,
we don't define... we don't define centrism that way at all. So,
but like, I want to know how did the two? Wait, can I ask? How did the two of you define Tim Pool? Like, what do you consider him to be? Just out of curiosity.
I think Tim Pool is an alienated. What's the word, Adam? The alienated liberal. What's the word that we always use for this?
Disaffected liberal.
I think Tim Pool is. I think he was. I think he was essentially a disaffected liberal. I think a lot of his audience was that.
And do you not find maybe he uses that as a tool? Especially, he might be better at speaking about these kind of issues because people are like, well,
sure.
I used to be a liberal, or I used to be a Bernie Sanders supporter, I used to be on the left, right? And now I've found the truth and I've seen it on the other side, kind of thing.
Right. I don't watch his live streams at all, and I stopped watching. I used to watch his normal videos for a while. I kind of lost interest around, I don't know, 2018 or so. So it's possible that he's moved significantly to the right since then. I think he started as a disaffected liberal. I think he would, my criticism against him was that he would intentionally focus only on stories that made the left look wrong or crazy, while intentionally ignoring stories that made the right look crazy, because he knows that that's kind of what his audience wants. And I think you can levy that criticism towards him without just getting into this argument about how someone self-identifies, which I think is somewhat irrelevant. I understand your point, Matt, which is that if he's basically providing a narrative to an audience that they can also self-identify in some incorrect way, but I guess I'm assuming that those people are also basically disaffected liberals who, they do agree with a lot of left-wing policy positions. They just really don't like wokeness. And then I guess you could have an argument about, well,
Lance, what is this format? Why do you have them all like? Oh, I guess you got them centered. I see.
Tim is kind of feeding them a narrative where he's kind of exaggerating the wokeness, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But to me, that's kind of a different argument than what's being made.
There's also, well, again, I have to do this myself every now and then. So I'm not saying that like I'm some higher enlightened or something, but all four of us here, just the fact that we do regular political online talk shows for hours sometimes. We are in a bubble where I think sometimes we have to step out of and realize that like the vast majority of people do not have the same understanding of labels and
I agree.
as we do. And I think that is why someone like Tim Pool, why I focus on him more than maybe some others, because I think that does tell people something that they believe that's just not true. They watch his show and they truly believe, like, if you're working 12-hour days or some shit, and you come home and you got a few hours to catch up on the news, and your friend told you to check out this Tim Pool guy, and you see all these people watching, he gets 40,000 people at concurrent viewers at any time. You're like, oh, this must be, a show to watch. And you got those 2-3 hours to catch the news, and you do it through his show. And then you go to bed and go right and clock in for work for the next shift. That's where your political ideology and how you believe, the political sphere, identifies and looks.
Right.
And I think that's a real problem. Again, I mean, I know why he does it, but that's why I focus on that, at least. I mean, we don't have to focus on this show.
Right. I understand exactly what you're saying. I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I feel like we're kind of looping, so we can.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, would you have a problem with Matt calling a take that Tim Pool has as right wing, even if he doesn't identify as a right winger?
That's
Here we go.
The way to do it, right?
Well, if he has.
Okay, so right wing take, even if he doesn't identify as a right winger. Right wing take. Even if he doesn't self-ID. Okay.
Has a right. Well, wait a minute.
Position, yeah.
If Tim has a right wing take, I mean, there's a difference between having a right wing take and Tim focusing on, or anyone really, focusing on these extreme edge cases in order to not alienate parts of his audience, which I think you could call out. I just think it's a different thing.
But you'd be fine with that, right? So if Matt was like, okay, what you just said is distinctly a right wing position or a far right position.
But the
or something
chat
like that.
literally says that I have Tim Pool derangement syndrome. Okay.
Okay.
I'm well known not lover of Tim Pool.
Beanie derangement syndrome.
I mean, he's got listen to your YouTube viewers. He's got a huge audience. Like
I know he does.
Is one of the I mean, I don't think it's derangement syndrome to focus on. I mean, would you get mad at these guys for focusing on something that like CNN or MSNBC?
Well, derangement
they're saying
syndrome means
they're
that
saying,
you don't see clearly that you're biased.
Yeah, they're saying that I'm biased against him. Unfairly.
I mean,
which
I would have
different.
to know exactly what it is, obviously, but I would say you probably aren't.
Well, yeah, you would. I'm sure you wouldn't.
But if he loved Tim Pool, you'd be here saying that he's completely biased.
No, I actually don't. I actually don't think it's a problem to focus on someone like that.
Right.
I mean, the whole idea that like Trump derangement syndrome. Like, listen, I even think like the libs, like the actual like shit libs, like your basic bitch Democrats, like they were obviously like over the top sometimes when it comes to Trump, but at the same time he was the fucking president of the United States. I mean, like I mean, it's to focus on someone like that is not completely nuts. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I never interpreted the TDS thing to mean you focus on Trump too much. It was to mean that anything he says, people just jump to the opposite of, essentially.
Bender doesn't resemble book smarts. I take that back. He has a soul in his eyes.
That's how I.
Yeah. That's part of it. I do still see like, why do you still talking about him? He's not president anymore. I mean, that's sort of a lame one too. But
he's running in 2024, right?
That too. Yeah. I mean.
Yeah.
That's
okay. Wait.
Right.
Do you guys think that Trump is going to run again?
I do.
I do. Yes.
Yeah. We have a $500 bet.
Yeah.
That Trump is going to run in 2024, and
who's in the affirmative for that one?
I am.
Okay.
What else is?
I think he's going to drop out at the last second.
Yeah. Sitch thinks he's going to drop out, but
did you think that as well in 2016 when he first started running?
No, I didn't.
No. Yeah.
A lot of people thought that.
I bet money Trump was going to win the primary and then Double or Nothing that he would win the election, and I won both those bets.
Right.
So, yeah.
I used to watch Celebrity Apprentice.
He's ready to, he's a Marxist or some shit. I don't care. I don't care about Tim Pool, the person. Tim Pool, the YouTuber who has got millions of subscribers, is selling his audience right-wing ideology as centrism or even liberalism. And that to me is my beef with that period. I mean, again, if Tim Pool off air is, high-fiving me and wants to take down capitalism, that's great. I don't give a shit because Tim Pool, the person on YouTube, is much more harmful by lying to his audience about the positions that he's espousing on his own program.
Sure. I mean, and I think, I would agree with that kind of perception. I do think, well, not exactly the way you phrase it, but I agree that Tim is definitely focusing on things for what I would consider the financial gain or for his audience and all this stuff. By just saying, I think you could just say all that without, saying you are a conservative. And you can kind of circumvent that kind of definitional conversation about self-identification.
I think that's sort of silly, though, because if you're espousing right-wing politics, who cares what the reasoning? I mean, obviously, it makes him look even worse if he's just grifting. If you're, if your label is correct, which I think.
This is a good point, and this is one of the reasons, again, why orientation is so important to my understanding. Because it's not about ultimately what you think and what you feel. Like, a person doesn't cease to be right-wing because they sleep at a given point. It has to do with what are the things that are in practice treated as fixed for you, right? So, like a centrist, for example, they don't they don't regard the aristocracy as like a fixed necessity in like a healthy civil society. They may not have like a firm position on God, on monarchy, on like the extent to which like civil liberties should be extended, how fixed gender norms are, stuff of that sort. However, how they behave treats the stance that does regard all of these things as fixed, as itself fixed. And so as a result, they end up doing precisely what the right does, and precisely the opposite of what the left does. And so, while from a policy perspective, it's not advantageous for a radical right-winger to have a bunch of milquetoast people making up the bulk of the voter base, and definitely having a bunch of centrists outnumber like actual like like fascists or whatever, poses a challenge to fascists to spread their ideology and to be successful politically. Nonetheless, when you look at the role that the centrist plays in terms of facilitating or impeding different political like sides, they impede the left. They impede the left's over here. They impede the left by insisting upon again like these fetishized notions of like a particular understanding of the individual subject, a particular understanding of the state, a tacit assumption that the state in some capacity, as it has been hitherto understood, must continue to exist into perpetuity as the only thing that can produce human well-being. Whereas for the right, well, it's true, like a centrist in conversation with like a radical right-winger who wants an aristocratic ethno-state, they'll butt heads, and the centrist will slow this person down. Yeah, the centrist will slow this person down. They only slow them down. They don't push against them. They don't make it impossible for them to exist. They don't stamp them out per se. They just slow them down. And what they effectively do is they act as a buffer against the people who are actually trying to critique the system, and the people who are trying to intensify the system in ways that run directly counter to the critique that the people on the left are making. The directions don't matter anymore. I keep bouncing between them.
It doesn't matter, then why?
On his show, I stayed away with it. Why? Well, I think it does matter, because based on
no, I'm saying you said why does it matter how he thinks, or if that's different?
Innuendo Studios' latest video, how long is it?
Well, if it doesn't matter, then why are you doing it the way that you're doing it?
Oh no! What I said was, what does it matter if the real Tim Pool is a leftist or has left-leaning positions on things?
He's not. I didn't seem like you were saying that he's lying about his positions on stream. You're saying that what he's focusing on, he's using intentional extreme cases that he'll line up with his audience so he doesn't piss them off, essentially. Right.
Well, I mean, again, though, to me, there's, again, if his audience is taking that right-wing ideology that he's espousing to them just to make them happy, then they get to go.
Can someone in this time period be an efficacious liberal against fascism? If you're self-conscious of what you're doing and what you're onboarding and why and how, maybe. I don't see there's a necessary contradiction there. I think one of the strongest retorts to a liberal attitude or centrist attitude that's, again, like, sort of insisting on the fixedness of these two sides and insisting on the reconciliation of two sides as fixed things that simply must be reconciled. I think one of the strongest retorts is that, well, look at what you're doing by insisting upon this stance, and see the consequences of it, and how many of your fellow citizens end up being trammeled over as a result, and silenced, and made unautonomous. This is directly contrary to the values that pushed you in the direction of that motivate you to take on this political position. Again, like you can find yourself engaging in like a very critical mode just by following through on your principles to their logical conclusion, and just doing so very boldly. Like I don't think there's a contradiction there. I think it's actually what most people end up doing. How most people end up becoming very like serious and very critical is they'll take their beliefs seriously, and they'll take their positions seriously, and they'll interrogate them. And they'll interrogate how they fit the world that they're living in currently, and they'll play out what they're actually doing. Now, you may still like retain your values at the end of it. You may retain the idea that a liberal society is probably the best bet you've got, but it might change how you go about it and what you treat as like what is sort of fixed and what can't be touched and what must be maintained. Like your attitude that way could change quite a bit. Centrists are always centrists because they have no idea what's going on. Yeah, but like the solution then is they need to learn what's going on. And they need to not have a monetary incentive to not expose what they've learned, right?
Home and or after the stream say to themselves, wow, even liberal Tim Pool thinks the same way me, a hard right-winger, thinks. I must be in the right position.
Yeah, right.
And those leftists are crazy.
Yeah. Right.
You know, I mean...
Right. I mean, I understand.
That's too long, Leo. I'm arguing with Stitch and Adam tomorrow. I'm not with Innuendo Studios. I'll look at that later, though.
Point. That's a fair point. I'm not sure his audience buys him being some centrist liberal anymore, but maybe they do.
I knew that there was an audience that I could reach in terms of like, you know, telling them this stuff, and they would go, well, he has a point, which is, you know, when I went on the show. But the reaction I received via phone calls on my live stream, DMs on Twitter, emails, that audience, I expected maybe a handful, even like, you know, maybe even one or two would have been like, well, that's good for me. I'm happy with how that turned out. It was a lot more than that.
Okay, I think we get the idea. Let's zoom ahead here.
A bunch of people on the left on. So
Joel.
Big Joel has been on. There you go. Exactly.
Lance's friend.
Matt Binder. Yeah, exactly. So
Matt Binder, not Binder.
I mean, they just look and they're like, oh, they have Sargon on. So I mean, we have everyone on.
Hey, let's finish this. Let's finish this video. See if there's any sense.
It's going to be like 45 minutes more, but we only have an hour left.
Dude, his video content is so painful.
Are we caught up on super chats? I feel like maybe
we're not caught up on super chats. Do you want me to do that now?
Yeah, we got a $50 super chat from.
Oh, I read that one.
Oh, you did?
But there's a bunch I didn't read.
Okay. Nice calling me out for falling asleep on the super chat.
What?
Anyway, continue.
Kind of cringe for 49 Mega Man XL says, Sitch, check your Discord DMs for Poopy Stompy, please. Yeah, no, I did see it. I'm very just bad at getting back to people. I will answer Poopy Stompy's Discord DM because I do have an answer to the question he was asking. Comic here for $10 says, President Sunday plays Quake like an old man. There you go. I don't know what that reference is, but I mean, I know what Quake is. I don't know what that reference is to President Sunday, but I believe it. Stuck for $5 says, no, they think that people who aren't familiar with either Nick or Destiny will watch and only be positively influenced by Nick Fuentes for some reason. To me, that's totally insane.
That is insane. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Lord Tenson's pipe.
I don't think that, by the way, just as a point of correction. The issue is not that I think that Destiny's present audience will be convinced by Nick Fuentes. The issue is that algorithmically, by making these interactions, Destiny directs a massive amount of audience flow in Nick's direction. So completely new people are suddenly finding Nick Fuentes first. And stuff like that. In a particular context in which, again, he's able to sell himself despite his reputation, which is not good.
For $5 says, President Sunday and Dr. Greg Sadler did a great takedown of James Lindsay's god-awful video on Hegel. I highly recommend it. Well, listen.
Yes, we did.
I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical that President Sunday, from this analysis, and from what Doomer's saying, could potentially create a great takedown of anything. So
right. Except for maybe his own channel.
Yeah.
I have it on good authority that Lindsay's Hegel video is pretty cringe, so maybe...
It might be, but I'm just saying I wouldn't trust Sunday.
I recognize that voice. That's a voice I haven't heard in a long time. That's the voice of a man who deleted his whole channel because Sargon didn't like his Dave Chappelle critique, his milquetoast Dave Chappelle critique.
Is
true.
And he hates poor people, apparently.
It's definitely not the best debunking of it. I'm sure there's much better from someone that isn't a fucking idiot.
Admiral Nelson for $2 says, "Good afternoon. I'm moving from Arizona to Texas."
Oh, they're not gonna bring Doomer on tomorrow, are they? That would suck.
S-team for the win. Well, hope you have a good move.
Sweet.
Good move. Cameraman 502 for $5 says, Sitch is terrible.
All right, you gonna wrap this up at some point? Burning daylight here.
You want them to clip me
Okay,
out
well,
saying that.
okay, since he's not gonna do it, I'll. So the words are ice, wall, ow, and come together. That was
like I swallow cum.
There, thank you. Doomer's such
Yes,
a better
you
sport
will.
than you.
Look at that.
Yes,
What does it mean?
I think, well, you'll have to ask President Sunday. I'm sure he could explain to you what it means.
Okay, he's good with definitions. Yeah.
Yes.
It means you swallow. You know,
Neo2
at the end of the happy time.
Oh, is that what it means? At the end of the massage? Neo2 for $2 says, Adam, I sent you an image on Twitter. Please check.
Oh, hey, Demon Mama.
You sent me an image?
Neotsu.
I mean, was it the thing? I feel like I already saw it.
What image?
The Actually, Jordan sent that.
Please.
I don't know. Did you DM me?
You've been going for 2 hours. The video's 5 minutes long. Just for the love of God, just end it.
I don't see.
Is your name Jordan Neotsu?
I don't
Look,
see.
Send it to me.
Look how long. I'm previewing it here. Look how long they spend on this frame. There we go.
Why?
Because that's what I do.
I didn't know this. This is the first time I've ever hearing this. I didn't know you were a math guy.
Yeah, I was a data analyst for like years.
Oh, cool. Okay, interesting. There you go. Dr. Diller for $1 says, when shit goes down on Sunday, put me in the screen cap. I call dibs. If I seem like I'm randomly supporting Xanth gum, it's because I'm stirring the pot to annoy Mahler, which is funny once in a blue moon. There you go, Dr. Diddler, the official shit stir. Anyway, let's finish off this video.
Oh, thank God.
Interests, despite their pretensions to moderation and nuance,
Bless
stand
you,
firmly
you
on the
sweet,
side of
sweet
the right.
man.
They either simply don't know it, don't care, or hedging their bets by trying to appear respectable to both, until such a time as the left is so politically weakened that there is no more currency to be gained in doing so.
Okay, so his argument he's making like 10 different arguments, and none of them make any sense. So the central argument is, left means no government, right means government. So if
The central argument is left means no government. No government, and right means government, or pro-government. So if you're in the center, you have to be on the right because you want some government, which that argument makes no sense, but now he's making a different argument where he's saying, reading the transcript here, well, no, people in the center are actually secretly right-wingers who just are waiting for the left to die, which is a completely different argument. No, that would be people like Tim Pool, who we were discussing in the previous debate, who are going to insist that they're centrists while playing up to a right-wing audience because there's still political currency in doing so. And then, once there's not, they'll make the switch. And we see this time and again. Academic Agent did this.
you're in the center, you have to be on the right because you want some government, which that argument makes no sense. But now he's making a different argument where he's saying, well, no, people in the center actually are secretly right-wingers who just are waiting for the left to die, which is a completely different argument. I think this is what you said, Doomer. I think
they are different arguments. That's why I prefaced that list of positions or of descriptions with either, because these are alternative states of affairs that may obtain. So okay, right, productive. So the retort is just that it makes no sense, but he doesn't say why it makes no sense. I guess I'll have to let them lead. There's no way around it.
I think President Sunday he has like all these ideas that are not clearly thought out, and so if he hides them in like weird language, he's hoping his audience doesn't notice.
What weird language? I just spoke normal English in this video. What big words did I use? Did anybody see any like massive words in that video? I'm pretty sure I just spoke normally.
I guess.
Yeah, that's legitimately that's his whole thing.
Yeah,
like, he can't express himself clearly, or he'll have nothing over anyone else. His whole shtick is to try and seem smart by like using overly complicated words and like.
He's still smarting from the ass whooping I handed him back during the Vosh is unironically evil arc.
Referencing a bunch of shit and generally expressing himself in a way that's like no one can fucking understand. It's like incredibly confusing and like muddled. And like if he didn't do that, then he would have no shtick because he doesn't have anything. He doesn't have any interesting ideas or like an interesting perspective. He's just like a dick, and this is like what he does.
Obfuscation is the word we're looking for.
Yes.
Here.
Thank you, President Sunday.
Well, yeah.
Food stamps will demotivate the poor. Thinks I'm a dick.
Obfuscation is like a $5 word now. I mean,
Of course.
I'm just joking.
It's a big old word. I mean, we can never say it right, so.
I've been working on it. I've been practicing on weekends.
I'm impressed. But no, it's weird too that he brought up the whole like left-right France thing, because even then the left in France at the time, they weren't for no government, they were just for anti-monarchy.
Yes, which is why orientations are important. You can't understand these things as things. Like, why are you even calling them the left anymore? Why do you even use this language? You can't understand them by reference to policy decisions, because if what distinguished these two was a gradual unfolding and an attitude towards established institutions, which it was, because like these groups had ideas of like state and national identity as something that can sort of grow and change over time. Policy positions can be adopted pragmatically by everybody, and that goes both ways. Like right-wing groups adopt, even overtly monarchist and aristocratic groups adopt democratic modes of organization and argumentation, and like working class sympathies, yada yada yada, even as they're working against them. They'll deploy democratic methods to overthrow democracy because they have to, or they see it as the most efficient way to do so. There's no contradiction there. Policies don't mean jack. In a state of extreme scarcity, it may be the case that policies of austerity that are associated with a right-wing position might actually be appropriate. The question is not like what the policy is. The question is, why is it chosen, and why is it preferred, and why do you select the specific ends that you do? Like, maybe for the time being, a state is absolutely necessary because there's a meteor heading to Earth, and the only way you can organize human powers efficiently to shoot the meteor down is to have like this massive colonial state apparatus in place. That's just like a necessary condition of saving the human species, so you can have more history and more change later on. But that doesn't mean you're fetishizing the state as an essential part of human nature. That just means like right now, you got to use the tools that you have.
Like, so even his example doesn't match what he's talking about.
He very frequently says things that are just like strictly wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As always, thank you for listening, and take care.
Oh, that was it.
Thank God.
Okay, wait, we gotta listen to him slow down to see what that sounds like.
There is in reality no such thing as a quote-unquote centrist in politics, and liberalism is very much an extreme stance. The right and the left don't exist along a spectrum.
I don't know why this is so funny.
They're a true binary. And in fact, liberals and centrists, however moderate they may think they are, sit entirely on the side of the right. To explain, the right-left divide originates with sitting arrangements of the National Assembly during the French Revolution.
He sounds drunk, that's why.
Conservative loyalists sat on the right side of the presiding officer, and
well, there you go. So, this video is so. How did you find this video?
A friend of the show sent it to us on Twitter.
This video is so bad. Oh my god, this is a dog shit video. Jeez,
that's all of his videos.
Well,
that's
actually,
why people don't watch them.
I think I might have stumbled upon it. Well, a friend of the show did send it to me, but I think I might have stumbled upon it investigating the guy that spoke to Mr. Girl, because I think he responded to it. What's his name, Doomer? He just messaged me. I can't remember. Supreme, Wicked Supreme, yeah. Wicked Supreme, first of all, he calls himself a centrist. Where's our credit? Come on. And so I started checking out his vids, and he responded to this video. And I mean, he might even talk to President Sunday. I'm not sure.
He did.
Okay.
He did, like yesterday or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was a shit show. Okay. Well, we might look at that too. Who knows? Yeah. I mean, Wicked Supreme seems like a cool guy, and I mean, he has a small channel, and we're always looking for. Look, he's team centrist, so it'll piss off President Sunday. We should shout him out and look. I'll put it.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I I want you to shout out. I want you in particular to shout out People at Wicked Supreme as often as possible. That would bring me peace of mind.
Let's put his channel in the chat and stuff. I'll look it up now.
All right, was that really it? Come on.
A pedophile. I mean, there are a lot of pedophiles on the left. I admit it. But they're not all leftists are not pedophiles.
Right.
Thank you for that.
Let's see if we can predict this or understand this.
Something that we need to be from because of the state. Ergo, man is born free.
Man is born free.
He is in chains.
You got that part right.
Well, no. That's
I mean, you disagree with it, but obviously.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I don't know if President Sunday says agrees with that or not. That's a stupid comment.
He doesn't say whether or not he agrees with it.
Not yet. I'm assuming he will, but people are not born free unless they have, again, it's all definitions game. You could define freedom in some bizarre way that you say people are born free. I would say that if you live in a society where there's no government, and so you have to watch out for the roving band of barbarians who are going to come and kill you and take all your shit, to me, that doesn't make you free. To me, having to live in constant...
Right, we went over this before. He doesn't understand. I mean, first of all, he thinks of society as being something that can both include and exclude organization and governance, which is silly because the roving bands govern themselves. The society you're in is identified as a society by reference to what? Well, it's going to be some kind of, like organizational structure that groups the whole thing together. He just he doesn't know what the quote is referring to. It's not referring to the state of nature. Man is born free is not. That's not what it's talking about. I mean, it's sort of referencing it, but like the chains are not.
Fear of the roving bands coming to kill you makes you less free than living under a state.
Right, okay, so yeah, he just doesn't understand the argument there, which is fine. I can explain that, and that'll eat up some time. This is like elementary stuff, though.
That has rules that most people follow, and you can go about your business without fear of being molested. To me, that's more free, not less free.
Well, isn't the quote, man is born free, but everywhere is in chains? Like, if you want to call the roving...
And I'm not adopting that stance. I'm describing Rousseau's stance to, like, show the move from Hobbes to Rousseau.
Hands of marauders, the chains, okay, I guess.
Yeah, but when you say man is born free, but everywhere is in chains, the implication is that nature lets people be born free. And that's where I have the contention.
That's
nature
not,
does
not true. Yeah,
right. Nature
There's
does not born
disease.
man. Right. Nature does not. Well, the fact. Okay, you because we don't live in Tom Jump's perfect universe.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's equivocating between the existence of harms, the absence of some organizational structure to ward off harms, which it cannot perfectly do under any circumstances. This is why all human beings die. And the absence of freedom, but the presence of harms and the shortness of life and the existence of scarcity and whatnot, that's not the opposite of freedom. That's just the opposite of wealth and flourishing. Moreover, Rousseau distinguishes between different kinds of freedom. So there's freedom in the state of nature, and by state of nature he doesn't mean like in the absence of government. He means in the absence of human beings who have not yet developed an idea of themselves as being things that can own things, as being things that can own property, as being things that have like a long-term sort of ethical imperative or a cultural imperative to stay tied to like particular communities or groups or family members or whatever, who haven't learned to feel shame at being cowards, who don't have a conception of their reputation as something that has value, things like that. He's talking about people who, when their coconut tree is attacked by a bigger human, they have no internal imperative whatsoever to defend the tree if they think they'll lose. They'll just and find another tree, and that's it. That's literally it. And moreover, okay, so that's freedom in a state of nature. Is you're not like you have the freedom to do whatever you want to do, and more specifically, what you want to do is not conditioned by technology, and by like, specific innovations and ideas about your belonging to some other thing, like a community or a family or a society. The other kind of freedom is the freedom of the citizen, which is the freedom to take part in the making of the laws that rule you. And so when I can't remember who it was exactly, it might have been Voltaire, but somebody remarked on Rousseau that like, why doesn't he just go into the woods and go about in all fours like a beast or something? And he pointed out, it's like, well, no, I am much too taken with like the letters and all of the luxuries that I like as a civilized human being to ever do that. That's not a thing that I can do. I am produced by my society. My standards of living, what I regard as being like a condition of like an intolerable condition, that is determined by the society in which I was created. Moreover, there are things that you can do, that you become aware of that you can do, that themselves condition you, chain you to certain modes of association, that you can only do in a society. Like, you can't, for example, have like the kinds of the wealth and ease of access of information, for which we have fostered a curiosity, which chains us to it. We actually can't imagine being disconnected from the internet because we've now come to need that information. That's a chain. It's not a bad thing, but it's a chain. So we're free, but we're free as contorted, chained, socially manufactured beings. That's where he's going with that. Whereas if we're just like idiot animals, just blind and unself-aware in nature, which is possible, then we're completely free of those chains. We do have a kind of freedom. We're free of those things relative to us. We can do whatever we want to do. What we want to do is not very much, but we are free. Is he appealing to T-Jump? I don't know.
You were born.
Is T-Jump Tom Jump? I don't know why he's calling him Tom Jump and Thomas Sowell.
You have to. The nature of life is one of murder. The only way, because we're not plants, the only way that we as
speak for yourself,
humans and other animals can survive is by stealing, killing, and consuming the energy of other living creatures. It's the only way we can live.
Deep, bro. But it doesn't matter, because you're free to do that. Again, like, even freedom in civil society does not protect you from death. And they're conflating the two. That's the problem. And moreover, they don't understand that there are, in fact, several states of nature in Rousseau. There's the absolute state of nature, which is what I described. Then there are family groups. Then there are roving tribes. Then there are like very early agriculture. Like it's not as simple as just oh, we need to just strip down and go run into the forest and just pretend we're monkeys. That's not what Rousseau is talking about. There are no human beings in the state of nature in Rousseau. A case in point, actually, for how distinct Rousseau and Thomas Hobbes are. Thomas Hobbes speculated that the natives of North America might still be in a state of nature. Rousseau does not speculate about this because they are not in a state of nature, or he does comment on this. They are sophisticated communities with amour-propre, with like this idea of self-love and reputation and honor, da-da-da-da-da. They have property, not property in the liberal sense, but they have belongings that they attach meaning and significance to, that they will covet and they will hold on to. They therefore have the necessary conditions of ever wanting to wage war or to be jealous or things like that. They have politics, essentially, because they're not in a state of nature. They're sophisticated, organized groups that differ only in terms of kind, ultimately, and maybe also, in addition, the capacity to, deploy the powers of the world as weapons of war. They don't have minds and the massive, like, like supply chains and stuff like that whole thing that you need in order to manufacture guns at scale, things like that. But that's trivial. Fundamentally, they are, in Rousseauian terms, basically a civil society.
Yeah.
We have to kill and steal the energy of plants or animals to survive.
Oh, hi, Gayfesh. How are you? To what do we owe the pleasure?
Survive. Okay. In that situation, you are not born free. Because you don't have the freedom not to eat, because then you die.
True.
So.
What? What?
Only way we can live.
Yeah.
We have to kill and steal the energy of plants or animals to survive. Okay. In that situation, you are not born free. Because you don't have the freedom not to eat, because then you die.
Well, that's true. That's a chain, yeah? So, in civil society, we have many more chains. We are everywhere in chains. Rousseau isn't arguing that we don't have drives. He's not an idiot. What he's talking about is how our drives are conditioned and change over time, with new modes of organizing and new types of... Because, like, our inventions don't just make life easier, they make us require an easier life. That's a good way to think about it. Our luxuries don't just make our lives better, they ratchet up our standards for what a tolerable life is. So, like, a hunter a few thousand years ago could stand comfortably in the rain waiting for prey, completely bare-backed in rain that we would be shivering and shuddering under, just because our toleration is so much lower. Like, there are conditions that people used to endure stoically and without remark a long time ago, not so long ago in fact, that we can't tolerate today. We don't actually have to kill plants to eat them, fruits or anything. Yeah, that's true. That is true.
True.
So.
Those are the chains, Sitch.
Yeah, like
food and water are the chains.
Yeah, food and water is a pretty big chain.
But food and water are not part of nature, according to President Sunday. So you're cool with that, right?
I mean, I don't know.
What about?
I don't know how they got that out of that. Of course, food and water are part of nature. I wasn't suggesting that human beings were disembodied spirits prior to civil society. That doesn't make any sense.
Not air. Is air part of nature? Is air part of the chains?
Right.
Because like
if
you get stuck out in the ocean, you decide you're going to jump off your ship to heaven, and you're drowning and can't breathe.
And someone could say,
is that the chains?
Someone could say, well, maybe you have the choice to starve and die. But I'd argue, well,
do you? Sometimes food can get pretty scarce.
Right. Well, I was gonna say.
Well, no, he said you have the choice to starve and die, but that doesn't matter. I mean, this is sort of evocative of Hobbes' treatment of slavery. He regards the slave as being justly the slave of the conqueror, because he could have chosen to fight to the death instead of accept slavery. Clearly, he made a bargain. He prefers his life to his freedom.
You know, if you have chemicals in your brain that literally control your hunger, that motivate you to act in certain ways, is that freedom? To me, that's a chain. Like the chemicals in your body are literally chains to make you do things. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Your moral intuitions are chains.
Yes.
That's why I'm like, this is so stupid.
Yes.
Like, what is the point? This man is born free, but everywhere in chains. I mean, what are you really saying?
It's literally the opposite. Man is born enchained, and you have to gain your freedom.
Yeah, you have to fight for.
Man is born in chains, yet everywhere he is free. That would be the opposite such
freedom. This
right.
This is the argument that we had with Christian.
Yes.
Over natural rights. I'm like, you don't have any fucking rights you don't fight for.
So there you go. I guess we're the opposite of Rousseau, whoever said this. Man is born in chains, and they must seek their freedom.
Okay, but what? Whence do they get the idea of freedom as an additional chain, as you're using the term, to force them to fight for it? Why are they fighting for their freedom? Where did they even get the notion? I don't see cats doing that. I don't see dogs doing that.
Yeah.
They must battle for their freedom.
Yeah. They must fight the dragon every fucking day for their freedom. And we are lucky. We're so lucky that we were all born in countries where our forefathers did half the battle, right?
Right.
They established institutions that are basically holding back the whole.
Where our forefathers beat all of their surrounding communities into submission and genocided the people who wouldn't give up or who couldn't be managed properly, and set the world on a possibly irrevocable course toward the destruction of the ecosystem and possibly the doom of our species. I mean, we're lucky we get to reap the benefits for the last few years before the world cooks.
Hordes that want to enslave us.
Right.
And they're like, all you got to do is keep the gates up, guys. And you have people like this saying, we need to tear these gates down. We need to completely restructure society. It's the gates that are the problem.
Right. There you go. DNA is a literal chain.
It is.
That's true. Hobbes? Okay, yeah. I disagree with that strongly.
The attitude to the state that considers it an essential corrective to essential human nature, and that which treats it as a mere contingency giving rise to unique problems we were otherwise free from.
Okay. So he's basically saying that this, as I conceptualize the state as our forefathers setting us up to, with these institutions that help us achieve as much individual freedom as we have, he's conceiving of the state as a limiter on our individual freedom.
Yeah. He's saying, I think what he's saying is that the problems that we need the state to solve are created by the state in the first place.
Right. Yeah. So it sounds like he's just an anarchist,
which is insane.
Totally insane.
How does anyone come to that? Like, societies evolve through a natural process.
No, they don't. So societies evolve as entirely artificial processes. Definitionally, we didn't naturally evolve a parliament, guys. We didn't naturally evolve bureaucracy. We didn't naturally, like, this is ridiculous. As people made decisions, they built technologies and they expanded on them and then had conflicts around things, and some people won and some people didn't. And some important people died and some important people were more healthy than others. And accidents happened, earthquakes happened here, a war happened here, Like, there's a million different contingencies, and there's so much artificial intervention in it. Like, this is preposterous. Didn't these guys who left just want more government later on? I don't know, did they? Let's see. That'd be kind of interesting to see. There are 30 instances.
I agree with Starman that the right and left, it's basically what I was saying earlier about pro-government, anti-government are relative positions, relative to whether or not you're in power, basically.
Well, yeah, from the position, well, they can be and they can't be. There are people that I believe are only anti-government right now because the government's doing things they don't like.
Yes.
But I also believe there are people that are just inherently anti the concept of a government at all, regardless of what it's doing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So the Justice 35 for $5 says President Sunday, more like President Run Day. Am I right, Doomer? Also, S-Class is the best class. But A-Team is the world's best moderator team.
Of course.
Destiny actually ran from Demon Mama in 6 minutes. He actually flat out ran. See, what I did was I said, oh, is that a fact? Is this like red herring that you're retorting with? Like, oh, well, aren't you platforming me? It's like, am I? It's like, yeah, I think so. Oh, well, in that case, goodbye, Steven. And then I ended the call. I let him have his say. I terminated the conversation as a show of my utter contempt for it, and for the dishonesty behind it. What Destiny did to Demon Mama is he said, hey, I promise you answer this last question and I'll let you ask 10 questions of me. Okay. Demon Mama accepts the deal. Do you think that men are more domineering? He doesn't even know what the fuck domineering means. It doesn't mean dominant. Domineering is an attitude of like tyrannizing over people. But do you think women are more or men are more domineering in sports? And she says, yeah, on average, sort of. And it's like, thank you, and then you worthless piece of shit or something, and then he hangs up before she could reply, because he was actually running, because he wanted his gotcha. It was basically what non-compete did to Bosch. It was actually really pathetic. That's the problem with dealing with people with no standards. or gray matter. I think, honestly, we're trying to squeeze blood out of a turnip here. I don't think there's an argument at all. I think we're just gonna have to wing it. I don't even think I can structure this that well, because I think they're so uninformed. The critiques are going to come completely out of left wing. I don't even know if they're going to be consistent with what we see here. So oh, for God's sake. Okay, are we back? Yeah, looks like we're back. No, we went towards the end. There's nothing.
Change, and I was like, you guys don't have better things to do than change?
Hang on.
Because like all the evidence points to the exact opposite of that. But no one has any evidence that it was a fishing expedition whatsoever. It's just
yeah, this is just bullshit. Yeah, I don't think there's any point in going through this anymore. I think what I need is just to sleep and to be sort of on my game for tomorrow. Because I don't even anticipate any consistency in the argumentation here, because they're going by the seat of their pants. They don't know anything about this stuff. Like they know nothing. So, I mean, I guess I'll just try to politely answer their questions and just engage with them as patiently as possible. This is the only thing I can do. I don't want to get mad at these guys though. I don't think these two are dishonest. I think they're just uninformed. They're doing sort of what Sargon did, but I think they might be a little bit more good-natured. I don't know. It's hard to tell. The problem is that people can seem awful when they're uninformed and they're treating people based on bad information as being awful. Because these people have no discernment. So. Yeah. Just gonna run ads quickly, just to squeeze some income out of this. And we're gonna call it here. Have a good night, everyone. Take care. I'll see you tomorrow.